The next day, Audrey brought Lyra to a house a few streets away. Lyra watched her as she pressed the doorbell with a single finger and then stepped back to wait on the porch, arms crossed in front of her. Lyra was dressed in some of her new clothes, blue jeans and a green sweatshirt. These clothes fit her better than the ones she'd arrived in, but those had been made in Equestria. They might not have been intended for a human originally. These felt perfect.
I haven't seen Nathan in weeks. This is the perfect excuse to come by and bother him.
From what I've been able to gather, this Nathan is another human. I'm not sure why Audrey gave the same name to the little object she's like tapping her fingers on or occasionally holding up to her face and speaking to. He's a musician?
Tried to be. That was a few years back. He never really got anywhere. He said he was trying to sell his old guitar on eBay, along with a bunch of other things, but I told him you'd be interested.
Lyra was about to point out that Audrey had just said that she hadn't seen Nathan in weeks when the door opened and another human greeted them. A male with dark hair just past his ears, and a black shirt that read Aperture across the front. As was typical for most human males, he was a few inches taller than either of them. He scratched his head.
Hello.
You remembered we were coming over, right?
Yeah, of course. So you're...
Lyra.
She put out her hand for a handshake and he took it. She was getting good at this.
I'm Nathan. You're the one who was interested in the guitar, aren't you?
Yep.
Well, come on in. I'll go get it for you.
There was music playing, growing in volume as they came into the living room. Humans seemed to love music even more than ponies did. They would play recordings of it practically everywhere. Stores, restaurants, sometimes even out in the streets from their carriages. Lyra tried to locate a phonograph in the room, but she still couldn't see one. It was hard to understand many of the words past the chorus. Walk this way, talk this way. But the repeating instrumental motif could really get stuck in your head. Lyra could recognize it as rock music. It was different than what she'd heard in Equestria, heavier with different instruments. But wasn't everything here different? This was what she was going to learn.
It's been a while since I've seen you. What have you been up to?
Nothing much. Enjoying the summer. Making a little money. So how'd you meet her?
It's complicated. I'll tell you later.
That's cool. It's just great to finally find a buyer.
Well, not exactly. More like borrowing?
Alright. What's the deal there?
Oh.
Lyra had been watching how the humans interacted with interest. It caught her off guard to be addressed directly.
She's pretty dead set on joining a rock band, even though she's never played guitar before.
If nothing else, she definitely looks the part.
Thanks.
And you don't have it listed online, do you?
Relax, I never even got that far. eBay's pretty confusing when it gets to selling big stuff like that. I was trying to figure it out, but I didn't get very far. And from the looks of things, I'd be lucky to even get $200 for the guitar.
I wish I knew more about what the humans are talking about. It is still just as fascinating to observe them, though.
She noticed that he had one of those big black boxes in his living room, too. Lyra thought she heard Audrey's father refer to theirs as a TV, whatever that stood for. The one in this house had a list of words: resume, options, quit.
Looks like you've been hard at work.
Well, I was, earlier. I've been selling a ton of stuff. I managed to list a few old games, some books. I've got a lot I'm getting rid of besides the guitar. So, you said you were just a beginner?
Oh, I've never really tried guitar before. I wanted to learn something new. I play the lyre. I heard that's not very popular around here, though.
A lyre? I guess if you found someone who played ocarina, you could start a band.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't really get sarcasm.
Anyways, I've got some beginner's guides, too. You can borrow those to help you get started. I'll get all that for you, it's just upstairs.
Thank you so much!
No problem.
Lyra waited with Audrey in the living room, listening to the footsteps from upstairs.
I wonder if he's even chosen a college yet. He's never really had much motivation. I'm not even sure what he plans to study.
He's still in school, too?
Of course. He'd better start looking into colleges soon. We've only got a couple years of high school left.
It's been over 4 years since I was in a classroom. Eventually I'll have to go back. Human schools are probably completely different than in Canterlot. I never really learned the full history and culture of my own race, and that's making it hard to fit in. What I studied my whole life only went up to a certain point in time. At least my musical talents are still just as useful here as in Equestria. For now, all I have to worry about is finding some steady income. Then I can worry about other things like school or going back to where I'd been born.
A few moments later, Nathan returned carrying a large black case. He unzipped it. It seemed to be made of nothing more than stiff fabric, nothing at all like the hard instrument case she used for her lyre.
Man, I don't think I've taken this thing out in years.
Can I,
Go ahead.
Lyra took the guitar and Nathan showed her how to put the strap over her head and shoulders. She moved her hands into a position that was comfortable. Right hand on the strings, left holding the neck.
It's a Les Paul, but don't get too excited. It's just an Epiphone. This is one of the cheapest ones they make.
Okay. Another inanimate object that humans gave a name like their own. Interesting. This isn't quite like the guitars I saw in drawings, not even the ones I saw ponies playing a few times. Those are usually made of wood.
She ran a hand over the smooth black face and plucked a few of the strings with her fingertips. They felt too loose. She found the knobs at the top of the neck and tightened them, but it still sounded too quiet.
I don't think it sounds right.
You need to plug it in. This goes in the end, and I'll go get the amp for you.
He headed back up the stairs. Lyra searched over the body of the guitar and found where the end of the cord clicked into place and moved across the strings. It still didn't sound right, way too soft. She wasn't sure why she had assumed that attaching a cord would change anything, but Nathan had sounded like he knew what he was talking about. The guitar was missing the hollow chamber inside, she realized. Without it, the sound just wouldn't project. It was even quieter than her lyre. He returned with a small black box. Taking the other end of the cord, he fitted inside.
You'll probably want to adjust these.
She watched him twist some knobs on the box. They were small, just large enough to take them in between the forefinger and thumb.
The varieties of uses for fingers is really amazing! What do those do?
Well, that's the amp. It's how you adjust your sound. You want this one about 5. Usually keep the treble up a bit higher. Add some reverb.
I'm completely lost.
Now try.
Yeah! It's supposed to do that?
I could turn it down a bit for you.
She tried a bit more and found that she actually liked the sound.
It's unusual. Nothing like I'd expect from a stringed instrument or any other kind of instrument for that matter. But somehow I find it musical.
After listening to some more, she realized this was a sound that she had heard in a lot of human music over the past couple of days. The physical art of playing it, though, that felt great. One hand was using the strings, which wasn't entirely unlike her lyre, but her other hand had to move along the neck, adding a whole new dimension to how this instrument was played. Both hands, each of her fingers, they all had to work independently in order to play this, but the challenge made it exciting. It felt like she was a filly again, learning to play her first songs in music class.
I've also got a tuner. It's somewhere in here. I'll show you how to use it.
I think I've got it.
Just by ear?
That's how I've always done it.
Try it out for a bit. I mean, I never quite got the hang of it, but yeah.
I think I like this. Just give me a little time. I think I can figure it out.
She tried a little bit more, her fingers quickly learning the way around the strings.
Do you mind if we step out for a while? I wanted to talk to Nathan about something.
That's fine.
Just keep working at it. Try to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
She nodded, but she was lost in concentration. Audrey led Nathan out into the hallway, still listening to the sounds of Lyra playing. One flat note at a time, repeated over and over until it sounded right.
So, what do you think of her?
What do you mean? I guess she's kind of cute, but...
That's not what I meant. She seems a little off, right? I wanted your opinion on that.
Well, yeah, I guess she's not really what you'd call normal. You said you met her a few days ago? What's her story?
What she's told me is that she just found out that she's adopted and she's trying to find her real parents. And she was sent away from home with nothing but an old photograph of them that she was found with as a child.
That's a little dramatic. How did you get into this?
She was in the park down by the State House a few days ago playing her lyre. The hair kinda got my attention.
Yeah, I can see that.
But Once I actually started talking to her, it turned out she can be a little strange.
I could have told you that.
You have no idea.
Sounds like she's getting the hang of it. Anyways, you were saying?
That's part of it. You saw how she didn't understand anything about how an electric guitar worked. She gets that way with a lot of electronics. It's like she's never seen them before.
Maybe she's Amish?
With hair like that? I don't think so.
Space Amish.
Get serious here.
Okay. Start at the beginning.
Well, we weren't exactly off to a good start. I started talking to her, she asked me where she could go to eat, so I took her to McDonald's. I thought that wouldn't be a problem, but I'm pretty sure she's never been to one before. She didn't even know what the food was, and it turned out she was a vegetarian.
Huh. Oh. Ooh, yeah, that's not good.
The look on her face, it was like she committed murder. She probably felt like she had, but while we were there, I was just kind of making friendly conversation, and she said some other things that bothered me.
Such as?
Well, apparently she's been living on her own since she was 12. Her and some other girl who she called her roommate, they might have been runaways, but Lyra doesn't even realize that it was anything out of the ordinary to live on her own at that age.
You're serious? Where exactly do two preteen girls go to live and not get found by child services? Or worse?
She won't tell me. Every time I try to find out where she came from, she just tells me the same thing, that it doesn't matter. I don't even know her last name. Well, she doesn't know her last name. Or she just won't tell me.
And you're letting her stay at your house? Even though you know nothing about her?
After everything she was saying, I started to get worried about her. She really has no idea what she's doing. I was able to convince my parents that she's harmless, and she's pretty much determined to make her own money. Hence this whole thing with joining a band.
So before this, she said she just played the harp.
When she came up with the idea to try guitar, I figured she'd be able to do more with that. I don't think she'll be able to try out for a band for a while, though.
A harp's pretty interesting, though. Where'd she learn to play that?
Believe me, I'd like to know. I'm hoping that she'll open up if I give her some more time.
So what has she told you?
Nothing I can really use. She claims her mother, adopted mother I guess, was a meteorologist. And she mentioned a few of her friends. Let's see, someone named Twilight, and then there was Diane. But at first she called her Pinky. But she said that Twilight wasn't a nickname.
If she was making those up, she'd have gone with something more sensible.
I do think she's telling the truth, when she says anything at all. But she's still avoiding telling me anything specific about where she's coming from and why she left. At first I wondered if there was something going on like abuse, but she seems too cheerful. Actually, she seems a little sad to have left home.
Then, what do you think's wrong with her?
Maybe nothing. Well, not in the disorder sense. She's naive, but her lack of understanding seems mostly culturally based. I get the feeling that she can actually be pretty smart. The only problem is what culture she's coming from and how she ended up in the middle of Iowa when she hardly understands how American society works. And you saw how she just reacted to the guitar. She didn't even expect it to sound like that.
So, what are you gonna do with her? I mean, how long can she stay at your house? Sounds like it'll already be impossible for her to find out who her parents are supposed to be.
I realize that. I'm starting to think that all she really needs is a hand up. She's definitely willing to work for what she needs. She just needs a place to stay for a while. So I'm doing that much for her.
Alls I can say is that you are in way over your head, Audrey.
Not as much as Lyra is.
Nathan and Audrey looked at each other, then headed back into the room where Lyra was practicing.
I think I've got it now.
That's Aerosmith.
I heard this as we were coming in. I thought I'd try it out.
You're sure you've never played before?
I've always been a fast learner. Music's my special talent.
That's one way of putting it.
Lyra stared down at the guitar again, still trying to familiarize herself with this new instrument. She'd never even dreamed that something like this could be possible. The sounds were unlike anything she'd ever heard.
I'm not the best musician myself. And even if you're not exactly Joe Perry,
Of course not. I'm a girl.
I still think you could probably audition for a local band if you really wanted to. You're already about as good as I was ever able to manage. Somehow.
How did you pick that up so fast?
I told you, music's my special talent. I've always been a fast learner. I can really have this?
Not exactly.
But
I'd still like to make something off of it. I'm letting you borrow it for a while.
I could pay for it. Just give me some time to make the money. I really like this instrument. It feels right. I might start playing it full time.
Sure. It's not worth that much, but that's fine.
I'll buy it from you as soon as I can afford it. I promise.
She carefully set the guitar back in its case and zipped it back up. There was a strap to carry it on her back.
I'll take this, Lyra.
I'll get those beginner's guides, but I'm starting to wonder if you'll even need them. You sound great. You've really got a knack for it.
You really mean that? As soon as we get back to your house, I want to start practicing right away.
You're serious about going through with this?
Of course. My parents always told me I should focus on my music career. Ever since I first picked up the lyre, they said I could go far with it.
They probably didn't mean joining some guy's garage band, though.
Probably not. I'm not about to tell either of them, but my parents didn't even want me to become a human in the first place, much less start playing human music. I wish they could see me now and know I'm doing alright. Things are starting to look better already.